How's it going, guys? Alex here. Welcome back to another SSR and SSR Revisited video, and today we are going to be taking a look at Vegito Blue and of course Super Saiyan Rose, and these guys were released just a few days after Vegito Blue's appearance in a TV show, and that was a bit of a surprise to some people because they'd never done that before. So obviously Bandai were trying to cash in on the hype, and clearly it did pay off. But when these guys were first released, people had multiple opinions just because, well, not of course people did have multiple opinions, but they had very conflicting opinions on which one was better than the other. And one thing that helped out a particular unit out of these two the most was the potential system. So as soon as that came out, I kind of boosted one above the other, but of course I am going to be talking about that in the video at some point. But I hope you guys are having a great day as always, and if you do enjoy today's video, consider leaving a like and subscribing if you are new. But to get started with Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, wow, how controversial this card was upon his release. I mean, he wasn't necessarily controversial, but he was definitely different for the most part from anything we've seen before in terms of his super attack mechanic and how it works. Well, it's more of his passive, but basically he gives the free key to super types as well as the 50% stat boost. So he was the very first super lead ever, like the hero lead. Absolutely insane, so much hype. This guy, like, it's just an insane lead because you can run every single hero on your team. Okay, not every single hero, but the best heroes on your team. And it was just a lot of fun. It was definitely one of the funnest metas by far, if not the funnest one. But, of course, moving on to a super attack, causes immense damage, 12 key multiplier of 150%. So when it comes to damage, he is very similar to Super Vegito because he doesn't actually get an attack boost from his passive. He instead relies on how high his attack stat is and how high his 12 key multiplier is, of course, and the fact that he has immense damage, and the fact that he can attack multiple times also helps out as well, which is one of the reasons why he is still to this day one of the best units in the game, of course. And if we move on to his passive, he has a great chance to launch 2 additional attacks, each of which has a chance to become a super attack. Damage received from normal attacks minus 30%, counter with tremendous power, and of course, as you can clearly tell, tremendous power multiplier is 350%. Counter attacks will still activate after he dodges from the hidden potential system. Counter attacks can also be critical from the potential system. So the potential system is a big thing, but I want to talk about these units before the potential systems. So at first glance, a lot of people thought that Vegito Blue was better just because, oh look, he can, super attack multiple times, he can somewhat tank, and he's just, an absolute beast. He's a hero for one. It's Vegito Blue, so of course he is going to be better than Rose, right? But then you see what Rose provides. He is consistently going to be hitting hard, especially on an agility team. Of course, he is the lead for the villain group. But I kind of feel like at the time people were a bit disappointed by Vegito Blue just because he didn't exactly tank as well as Super Vegito. And of course a lot of people wanted that. I mean, he is basically Super Vegito that can, super attack multiple times, but he just can't tank as well. Of course, with enough potential system buffs, he is easily better than Super Vegito and better than the majority of the units in the game. But at the time when there was no potential system, some people thought that he wasn't necessarily that great, and some people thought that he was better. But what I believe is that Bandai definitely had in mind a potential system, which is why I said that when the potential was released, that he was a product of the potential system. And of course what that basically means is that he is easily going to be one of the better units in the game, or potentially the best unit in the game, when he has a decent amount of potential system increases. And of course, once he is fully maxed out in that potential system, you can see him truly shine. Every single time he super attacks, he has a chance to get a crit, and if he gets multiple super attacks to go off, they can all be crits. Every single counter that he gets can potentially be a crit, so you can see how much damage is potentially there. And if I'm not mistaken, he's actually in the top list for the top hardest hitters in the game, and I can only imagine how insane he is going to be once a Potara lead, for example, comes out. That is just going to be absolutely game breaking. And again, you have to go back to when he was first released. You have a look at his link set. He has Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Over in the Flash, Prepared for Battle, Power Bestowed by God, Fierce Battle, Fuse Fighter. So his link set isn't a problem at all. He has the best, well, some of the best key links in the game, some of the best attack links in the game. So that wasn't the problem at all. The problem was the fact that he couldn't necessarily tank as well as some of the other units. And that was something that definitely did bring him down because of how much the game relied on survivability. That is one of the reasons why Buhan was one of the best units in the game. That is the reason why Super Vegito was the best unit in the game, because of how much he provided in terms of his offensive capabilities and how much he provided in terms of his defensive capabilities. And again, same goes for Buhan. Gotenks not so much. Omega Shenron, again, he has the debuff in. He can hit relatively hard. Broly, not so much. Kind of in the same scenario as pardon me, kind of in the same scenario as Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. But of course, if you ran Vegito Blue on a Broly lead, Vegito Blue kind of helped, but it wasn't like fully there yet. They still needed another tank, and a lot of people thought that Vegito Blue was going to be that tank because of how similar he was to Vegito, but he doesn't have enough of a reduction to get to that point. Granted, like I said, when you take the potential system into account, he is easily capable of tanking every single hit, even with a type disadvantage on particular leads, and because of what they are doing with the categories and such, he is going to be getting even more of a buff. Like, let's just say there is going to be a Potara lead, right? He is going to be getting a 300% stat boost, which is going to increase his defensive stat massively. And of course, the defensive stat is going to be like one of the factors that comes into account when you're talking about his defense and how well we can tank. But that 30% reduction from every single attack is still going to be there. Granted, you have bosses that can potentially greatly lower defense, which is going to make a bit of a difference. But that 30% reduction is always going to be there. And of course, because they're releasing even more support units that increase defense and such, it's just going to be very hard to replace this guy in certain senses when it comes to the potential system. He is easily one of the best units in the potential system because of how much he advances in terms of a top tier unit, if that makes any sense. But again, when he first came out, he was inferior to Rose in some senses, but as soon as that potential system came out, there was a bit of a difference there. He really started to shine. It's like, okay, so these crits now, he is critting pretty consistently. That's like a 30% chance if you open his top left path and his bottom right path. 30% is pretty huge. So if he manages to get a crit with almost every single attack, he is easily going to be out damaging Rose and a large majority of the other units, okay? And you also have to take into account that with the additional super attack, or just the additional attack from the potential system, he has the potential to super attack 4 times in one turn. Of course, that first super attack is guaranteed if you have, the sufficient ki, which the majority of the time you do. But 4 super attacks, which all could potentially be crit, you have the fact that he is going to counter multiple times, especially because of how many times the bosses attack you now. The amount of damage there is just absolutely insane, and that is one of the reasons why he is a top tier unit with the potential system. Even without the potential system, he is a top tier unit, but the fact that the potential system gives him crits is just a massive game changer. The fact that it raises his own defense to the point where he can tank like Super Vegito is a game changer. Granted, defense isn't exactly necessary at this point in the game, but it still does help, of course. It's just nice to have that reliability when it comes to at least being able to conserve some of your items. But overall, Vegito Blue is just an absolutely incredible unit. I honestly can't wait to see what they do with his legendary rare. Again, I don't know if he's going to Dokkan Awaken from the current one, or if he's going to Dokkan Awaken from a new one. We will have to see. But again, Vegito Blue, absolutely incredible unit, introduced one of the funnest metas in the game to this day, and a lot of people still use him. Granted, it's not exactly the greatest team to run, but it's still a lot of fun to use because you can use all of the heroes that you want in one team, and he is still one of my favorite units in the game to this day. But of course, now if we move on to your boy, Super Saiyan Rose, one of the greatest transformations, in my opinion, in the Dragon Ball series. Just a great looking form, and I remember how at the time people were like, pink hair, that's gonna look ridiculous, and as soon as he transformed, it looked absolutely incredible. And of course, that mostly comes down to the aura. But the point is, this card, again, still to this day, is absolutely incredible. He has the free ki and a 50% stat boost to extreme types. He causes immense damage and greatly lowers defense. He has a 12 ki multiplier of 150%, and unlike Vegito Blue, he doesn't have too much more additional information because he can't counter, which that would have been interesting. Can you imagine if they gave him a counter like in the series where he just like stab Vegeta through the chest? That would have been pretty cool. But of course, that is still at the moment kind of unique to Vegito because he does tank or counter normal attacks, but then you have the Super Saiyan 4s you can did I say super attacks? You have Vegetos you can counter normal attacks, and then you have Super Saiyan 4s you can counter super attacks. And then of course his passive gives free ki to extreme types, and he gets a 100% attack boost. So that 100% attack boost at the time was absolutely insane. Very few units got an increase that high, and of course you did have like one-offs here and there, like Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks 120%, Full Power Frieza 120, but the thing about Full Power Frieza is that he didn't exactly have the highest 12 ki multiplier, so they kind of tried to nerf that 120% by lowering his 12 ki multiplier. But the thing about Roy is that they kind of went all out, 150%, 12 key multiply, 100% attack boost, and that free key to extreme types was the game changer. That free key was one of the factors at the time before the potential system was implemented into the game that made him better than Vegito Blue, because of course Goku Black does not have the same passive on the Japanese version of the game, but it doesn't really matter too much if you're running Rose and Goku Black in the same rotation because they share a ton of links. But if you didn't have a villain team that necessarily shared too many links, this guy was literally going to make every single unit on your team super attack, and of course that comes down to his passive. Because if you take a look at some of the villains before, they had, I mean, you had ones here and there with decent links, you had some with shocking speed, some with fear and faith, but if you didn't have the main villains, those teams wouldn't necessarily work out too well. And because you're most likely going to be using one Super Saiyan Rose every rotation, that just cemented the fact that his passive is one of the greatest in the game, just because he does provide that free key to extreme types. And his link set, again, like Vegito Blue, is very good for a villain team. He has Super Saiyan, Big Bad Bosses, which is one of the greatest links for a villain team. Dismal Future, Prepared for Battle, which isn't the greatest for villains, but if you have Goku Black, it's okay. But it doesn't matter because he is still going to be given the free key with his passive anyway. Fierce Battle, Nightmare, Fear and Faith. So, okay, Prepared for Battle, not the greatest link for a villain team, but Fear and Faith. Omega Shenron, you have Janemba as well. It just works out really well, and it was just such a fun team to run. I actually went with villains on my account, and of course that's why I kind of managed to pile up the hero leads over time. But at the start, I went with the villains, and it was just a lot of fun to run because he had so many different units that could do different things. You had Rose with that free key and that 100% attack boost. You have Janemba who can tank the hits. You have Omega Shenron with the damage reduction and the fact that he can hit relatively hard. Buhan with the debuffing, and of course the nuke type passive. It was just an extremely fun team to run because every single unit in that team was unique. And of course villains at the time were a much better team just because of how much they can reduce damage and how hard it can hit. And it's not to say that heroes were bad, but of course the implementation of the potential system made a massive difference in which team was superior. You can still debate that with the potential system, villains were slightly better, but over time, heroes easily surpassed that. Of course, when you have Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, when you have Super Saiyan 4 Goku, when you have Super Gogeta, when you have Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, and of course, Tech Super Saiyan 3 Goku, it's just hard to compete with that, especially because the villains this time around aren't necessarily too popular. And one of the things that I think they kind of messed up in is the fact that they kind of separate the hero and villain leads. You take a look at the previous meta, and every time you were looking for a friend with a specific lead, there was at least one. It doesn't matter if it was Broly, which was the least favorite one. It doesn't matter if it was Omega Shenron, Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, or Super Vegito. You are going to find those friends with ease. But when it comes to the villains of the 120 meta, you're rarely going to find them. I think that on the global version of the game, because of how hype he is at this point, and because of how good he basically is, we know that on the global version of the game, he is hopefully going to be a bit more popular. Hopefully, a few more people are going to go for him because, of course, of how over the months, multiple people have been saying, okay, this unit is actually really good. He is on par with the Super Saiyan 4s. Like, even myself, I wasn't a big fan of Cooler from the start, but over time, I was like, okay, this guy is actually pretty damn good. He is on par with the Super Saiyan 4s. I want to use this team a lot more. But I think the thing that put people off him was the fact that it's Cooler. So it will be interesting to see how many more people go for him. I hope that a lot of you guys are going to go for him as well. And of course, if you do go for Cooler, and this is just a quick plug, and you want to add me, I will leave my friend code down in the comment section at some point in my summoning video, most likely. So if you do pull Cooler, or if you are going to pull for him, definitely go ahead and add me. And of course, I will try my very best to provide a decent Cooler for you guys. But back to the video, of course, we have Super Saiyan Rose. Again, when it came to the potential system, he still benefited like Vegito Blue, but he didn't benefit quite as much. Granted, he does have that percentage type passive, so when it comes to his attack, it's going to benefit a ton from the potential system. That 100% attack boost, of course, is pretty massive, even in this meta where everyone is getting like 120, 150, and it did raise his defense as well. But overall, it didn't necessarily give him too much in comparison to Vegito Blue. Take a look at both units, and when they are fully maxed, of course. You have Vegito Blue, who can tank every hit, essentially. You have Rose, who can somewhat tank almost every hit, depending on how high his defense is, and of course, on the lead that you are on, and if certain links are active. For example, that Big Bad Boss's link is going to give him a 25% defensive boost. So let's say that Vegito Blue can tank for double digits, and Rose can tank not quite double digits, but maybe 4 digits from, you know, here and there, maybe with a type advantage. So when it comes to defense, Vegito Blue wins, okay? When it comes to offensive capabilities, that is a bit of a wild card in a way, because you have Vegito Blue, he can get multiple counters in, they can all be crits, and then you have Vegito Blue who can super attack multiple times as well. So 9 times out of 10, Vegito Blue is going to be the unit that is going to be hitting much harder, just because of how many times he can super attack. And even if he doesn't super attack, the counters are the things that are going to put him over the edge. So to be honest, the counter mechanic is still one of the most broken mechanics in the game. The fact that he can counter every single super attack and potentially get a crit is just ridiculously broken. And he can't even take into account the free abilities here, because they both have the free additional. So it's just one of these things where you have to say, okay, so one is better at like some things than the other, but overall one is definitely superior when you take into account certain things. But let's just say no potential system. Rose in this current meta, okay, Rose in this current meta is inferior to Vegito Blue without the potential system, okay? You take a look at when they were first released. Rose was better than Vegito Blue when they were both released without the potential system. But if you take a look at the current meta with the potential system, Vegito Blue is better. You take a look at the previous meta with the potential system, Vegito Blue is better. That potential system makes a massive difference, but in the current meta, Rose is inferior. Again, I'm not saying that he's bad at all. He is still one of the best units in the game easily, but in comparison to Vegito Blue, he has kind of fallen off slightly. So to quickly go over it again, in the 70% meta slash hero, with the potential system, Rose is not as good as Vegito Blue. Without the potential system, Rose is better. In the current meta, without the potential system, Rose isn't as good, and of course with the potential system, Vegito Blue is better. So it's a shame that Rose has kind of fallen off, but to be fair, that's just kind of like what the meta has currently done, because in comparison to some of the other units when it comes to attack, he's still very good, don't get me wrong, but the fact that his main lead is someone that people don't necessarily use a lot kind of just, you know, shafts him. And again, let's just say that everyone uses every single lead in the game. This is hypothetical, of course. Like, even then, Vegito Blue is just easily the superior unit, but I definitely feel like the majority of it comes down to the potential system and how much he benefits from that, because that is definitely it for the most part. But even without that, those counters are just way broken. Like, he is legit countering like 5 to 6 attacks every turn. Okay, that's the best case scenario. In certain scenarios, he is maybe going to be countering 2 or 3 attacks, but even then, he is still going to be hitting super hard, and he is still going to be hitting harder than Rose. He is going to be tanking better than Rose. Again, I know tanking isn't exactly as relevant as it was before, but you have to take a look at every single aspect of the card, and overall, Vegito Blue is the superior unit in this current meta. Keep that in mind. In this current meta, Vegito Blue is the superior unit, and the potential system definitely does help him out the most. But this analysis video in particular is definitely one of the ones that I was looking forward to the most, just because I was looking forward to basically seeing how the meta's changed these guys, and how certain mechanics like the potential system just changed which unit ranks above the other. But I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say about these 2 units in particular. I would imagine that some of you are going to go Rose, and I am definitely curious to hear why some of you guys would say so. And if you guys want to debate in the comment section down below, I will most likely be down there as well. So like, let me hear what you guys have to say. But as always, I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you all in the next one.